Islands is in discussions with China to allow military forces to be stationed in the Pacific nation. That's according to a leaked document. Joining me live now is the Executive Director of the Australian Strategic Policy Institute, Peter Jennings. Peter, good morning to you. So if this turns out to be true, what does it mean and how concerned should we be?
Well, I think there is no doubt that it is true. I've seen the document. What it would do, what it would enable if it was actually agreed, is to give China pretty much carte blanche to have access to the Solomon Islands with its military forces anytime it wanted. And another thing that's interesting about the document is there's a clause saying all of this should be kept secret. I think it's just as well that it's actually become public. Yeah. You know, my view on this is that this is something which is simply unacceptable from an Australian strategic and defence point of view. It would create a threat to the east of Australia, an intelligence gathering opportunity for the Chinese. This is something that we simply have to stop.
Right, it's a red line for us.
It is absolutely. It's a red line. It's a core strategic interest. You know, the last time Australia was dealing with a strategic problem from this region was when the Japanese Imperial Army was occupying Melanesia and the Solomon Islands in the 1940s. We cannot allow this to happen. And so we can talk about the niceties of diplomatic relations with a country with, you know, a population well under 1 million people that is utterly dependent on aid and whose elite is happy to send their children to Australian schools. We now need to have a pretty firm discussion with the government of the Solomon Islands to say this can't be done. The other thought I'd share with you, Pete, is that the United States has just announced it's opening an embassy in the Solomons. So this is something I think we need to think of from an alliance perspective. It would be completely unacceptable for the Americans to have a Chinese military presence there also. So this is going to require quick and firm and decisive action from the Australian government to put a halt to it.
I mean, like you said, it's close. We're looking at Chinese ships stationed 1,700 kilometres from our largest ADF garrison in Townsville. Not to scare people, but I mean, that's within missile range, isn't it, if they chose to do that?
It sure is, and then think beyond that to things like China's capacity to use that as a location for electronic intelligence gathering, for putting in over-the-horizon radars. You know, there's many reasons from a security perspective why this can't be allowed to happen. You know, we're partly to blame here. This is the outcome of, I think, several decades of Australian underinvestment in the Pacific region. If we claim some sort of leadership status in the region, we're going to have to actually back that up now with funds. Right. We should be thinking about a military presence ourselves in the Solomons, you know, rather than leaving that to the Chinese. So there's some catch-up work that needs to be done. And I hope we treat this as a wake-up call, and instead of sort of tiptoeing around it, we actually come in with a pretty firm response saying, no, this is not going to happen.
You said a military presence there. I mean, we've had a military presence there not so long ago to help calm riots that were in the Solomon Islands towards the end of last year. Is this a slap in the face for us from the Solomon Islands government? I mean, the reporting goes that it's been on the take from the CCP for a while now, so this is obviously what China's getting in return.
No doubt about it. I mean, what is happening in many parts of the Pacific is China goes through the business of capturing the political elites of countries, and it does it in a very simple way. It pays them money. And we have in the current Prime Minister of the Solomon Islands an individual who has long been known to be a person with not much sympathy for Australia. Who I think has been looking for opportunities to essentially keep himself in power with Chinese money and then use that to actually do damage to Australia's interest. I don't think that's true of the broader Solomon Islands population. I think there is actually a great deal of affection for and closeness to Australia. And we've probably just been, frankly, just too distracted looking in other directions to really invest in that type of connection.
Okay, Peter Jennings, always good to get your thoughts. Thanks for joining us here.